about the problems are minimal compared to the amount of people not having problems. But when our life is consumed with dealing with the problems, sometimes we feel
That's
like,
all we're focused on is, oh my gosh, there are so many people doing everything wrong.
right.
There's like a
And
thousand hair extensions done an hour, and we're dealing with the 5, 10 people that have an issue.
right. And RJ had to remind me of that sometimes. I'm like, maybe we need, and he's like, calm down. Look at this is all the good, he'll show me how much hair we're selling, how many hair people are buying. And then of course, a lot of times the problem is a girl who bought hair or a guy who bought hair twice this year. Once in January, once in October, and they're having problems. A lot of times it's experience. They don't even do it enough to know how to do it right. And so, yes, we deal with the problems. And the very first thing I do is I ask them, thank God for modern technology, send me a short video of you doing a couple of these, whatever it is, because I can pick apart the technique a lot of times. Because I've always said extensions are like a three-legged stool. You gotta have a good product, a good hairdresser, and a good client. Any one of those three go down. But now we're gonna kind of dive into the details. You can have a good product, and then the hairdresser, what does that mean being good? Using the product and doing a really good technique in this one little square inch of space of real estate on the head is one small part of it. Let's say you get the technique right and you get that angle right and you put it in right, but you put it on top of the head. It's going to show and look terrible, So that's just one small part of the simple, easy situation. You can be good and it can be simple and you get the technique down, but if you don't know where to put it, that's the first step of not doing it right. And placement patterns
matter. We talk about placement all the time.
I'm gonna grab this head that I dropped over here.
Yeah. Placement patterns, we talk about placement all the time because getting a good type of hair or getting a good type of hair extension, that's great. Putting the hair in correctly, yeah, that's great too. But if you put it in correctly, but you put it in the wrong spot, it's not going to look right. It's not going to wear right. And that becomes a bad job, unfortunately. So we harp on that all the time. And I think amongst all the questions we get asked, placement pattern is probably in the top 2, right behind. To me, I think placement pattern, how much hair, and how to blend the colors. Those are probably the top 3 things I get all the time.
And what's funny is our top performing video for like 8 or 9 years now is cutting, because they don't realize that they don't know cutting until it's the one viral video I had was on cutting. Yeah. Because most hairdressers don't realize they're not good or don't know how to cut hair extensions till after the class, because then they go do their client's hair that's maybe different than the model or the mannequin they did in class. They get into the salon, they got to do a haircut, and here's a good example, and I'm going to use the name because he's not in the business anymore. Brad Swift was one of the first people to do our wefted extensions. Super talented hairdresser, owned his own salon in Midland, Texas. He sold a salon, retired from the hair business. But I remember he called himself out in the class. I said, since these wefts are put in 2 solid rows, if you pull the hair straight up in the air and cut your layers or anywhere up in the air like you normally do, when it falls, it's not going to have the layers in between the wefts to blend it together, so you can't pull it straight up to cut it. He said, oh yeah, that makes sense. 30, 40 minutes later, after he gets the wefts in, he pulls it up in the air and starts cutting it like that. Drops it and it looks stupid. And he said it as he saw it. So it doesn't even matter if you say it. It seems like a lot of people can't get it till they experience it. And right when he does it and drops it, he's looking at it and kind of like thinking out loud. And he says, it was so funny, he says, yeah, you did say not to do that, right? I was like, I'm so glad you said it. I'm glad you remember me saying it. Now you got to feel it, but he was a nice guy. He's still a nice guy. He got a package of hair in one time and he called me up and he says, I need another exact order like the last order I ordered. I don't know what I was thinking, and I just cut the package open and I cut right through all the hair.
Oh no! Oh.
Yeah. And you know, the hair in the package is folded in half. So he like cut the hair in almost in half. I mean, he cut half the length off.
Oh, that's
Oh
painful.
man.
That is so painful.
But we all have these learning experiences, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just good. I mean, I've messed up some big jobs, and that's how I've got the experience now. And that's what makes the part where you say it's not easy. It's not easy when you mess up and a full head of extensions needs to be taken out and put back in because you made a mistake. I cut all the bonds too small on some keratin bonds one time. I kept getting more and more risky, cutting them smaller and smaller and smaller, trying to make
Yeah.
them disappear. And I went so small that there wasn't enough keratin
I
to
used
support
to
the
do
weight.
that when I first started doing hair extensions, highlights, hair color highlights, and foiling. The whole game was how close to the scalp can you get. So when I had first started learning hair extensions, and I think that this is still applicable to this day now.
Yep.
Every time I'm teaching somebody brand new, ain't done extensions before, they're desperately trying to push that attachment area. Doesn't matter if it's
Yeah.
a bond, a tape, a weft. They're always trying to push that attachment area as close to the scalp as possible. And they don't understand, or it's so hard to get them to understand. You got to leave a little bit of space for it to have some movement. You got to follow that natural fall. You don't have to get straight up into the head.
Well, here's where it all stems from too, is that hair, let's just say it's hanging on the head like this. You've gotta lift a little to get a tool and your fingers
get it in
underneath
there,
and
yeah.
on top to be able to roll or fold or whatever. And so there is a certain bit of lift you have to get to see and do
Wait, how do
something
you do that?
through that little space right there. So it makes a lot of sense that the higher you lift it, the easier it is to do. Easy usually is not the right thing, right?
Is never the right thing.